name is Suniti. Welcome to this yoga practice where the invitation is going to be to connect to pleasure. And I'm accessing pleasure as a way to melt my conceptual mind into being more here, to be more here in my body, in this moment, at this time. So connecting to pleasure can bring up all kinds of things, and we can simply listen to that and be curious of that. Okay? So if you would please bring your hands together and just start to feel them meet. So you can rub them together, slide skin on skin. And follow anything that might feel good here inside of this contact. So right away, I'm finding some chill in my fingers, and so I'm rubbing my fingers. And it feels like it's a request. It's a request of my fingers to experience more pressure and heat. And it feels good. So then I'm going to experiment with letting what feels good melt me. It's like, putting a good flavor, good food in your mouth, and then really letting yourself receive it so that you're fully in that flavor, fully in the taste. So what is it like to be fully in the sensation of hands touching? Now bring your hands onto your head and do a similar thing. So just some pressure, some touch to your face, to your head. And again, following what would feel enjoyable, what would feel nourishing. And then coming down to do that to your torso. Again, some brushes or some squeezes. And then brushing down your legs. And do that a few times, the brushing down your legs. Notice how round you are. And again, what is it like to let the touch include pleasure? And part of that is simply noticing if there's capacity or access to connect with pleasure. Do I have the resource enough in this moment to connect to pleasure? And I don't always, so that's also just good information. So as you're ready, please come towards all fours and begin to move your spine. This might show up as a cat-cow. Lengthening the front of the spine and lengthening the back of the spine. You can also free that up. Maybe move through some circles or some side to side movements and maybe even some spirals. And then again, coming into the experience of moving your spine and including your breath. Be in the experience or moving towards any place where you find pleasure. Where does it feel good? And then letting yourself experience that. Head on back to a downward facing dog. And then take your down dog for a little walk. So take a couple steps forward and a couple walks back. So you're being a four-legged animal moving through space. And in that, again, connecting to the contact of the floor, push and pressure. And could this pressure be informative? Could this pressure feel good? Then as you're ready, find a steady downward facing dog. And be with your breath. When we breathe, we are being touched on the inside. So intimate. Few more breaths here, being touched by breath. As you're ready, stepping forward to the front of your mat. Lengthen halfway Ardha Uttanasana. Fold forward Uttanasana. And do that a few times. So your spine is like a wave, lengthening halfway up and folding forward. And in that forward fold, feel free to bend your knees and truly release the weight of your spine. And a few times like that. Notice what little amount of effort is required to do this. And then when you're ready, we'll keep the knees bent, drop the tail just a bit, and begin to roll all the way up your spine. Lift your arms up towards the sky and release your arms down. Let the right hand come just over the left hand in front of the belly, as though you were holding like an imaginary energy ball. Find a nice big exhale here. And on an inhale, allow the right hand to travel on the high diagonal and the left hand to the low diagonal. And now I'll bring you into a side bend. Exhale, travel back through center, finding the energy ball, change what hand's on top, and then inhale other side. So left hand to the high diagonal, right hand to the low diagonal. Travel back through center, switch what hand's on top. Then inhale, side bend. Exhale, traveling through center, switch what hand's on top. Notice the relationship between the two hands as they spread apart. It's almost like you have taffy between your hands. Stretching, lengthening, coming back through center, and then shifting what hand is on top. So continue like that. Include your breath. And be moved by breath. And then in this movement, connect to pleasure. The pleasure to breathe, to be touched on the inside, and dropping into the appreciation of movement, of being moving, coming from movement. And when you're balanced side to side, come back through center and release both hands down. Begin to find some big circles with your arms now. So arms moving in symmetry. The knees will bend as the fingertips go forward. And then lengthen the arms as they travel back. Release your arms down, bend your knees again, and we'll do that several times. So the arms circling. Let your spine move in a back bend and in a rounded shape. Feel your feet rooting into the earth, knees bending. Moving your arms. The next time you're in the back bend, we'll pause there. Explore fullness of breath, full inhale, full exhale. And as you're ready, fold forward. In your forward fold, simply bring your hands up to the tops of your legs and brush down your legs. You can bring them back by the sitting bones to brush down towards the heels and feel your legs. Do this a few times and notice how your hands touch your legs and how your hands change shape in relationship to your legs. So feeling your roundness. And then again, this invitation to explore some pleasure in this touch. So it's like your hands are lovingly touching your legs. And then when you're ready, bringing your hands to the mat, step back to a downward facing dog. Step your left foot forward between your hands and lower your back knee down to the ground. So here's a place where you could keep your hands on the floor, or you could bring your hands up to blocks. And because the invitation is to connect to some ease today and some pleasure, it might be that coming up a little bit higher will be in service to you. If the sensation is too strong, sometimes we can get a little caught in our edges. So backing up from those edges can be useful. So we're going to inhale here, and on an exhale, push down through your front leg to gently elongate the front leg, maybe bringing it into its full length. And then inhale, we'll bend the front knee and explore a little lift of the sternum again. A few times like that. Again, dropping into the breath and being moved by breath. Being with breath, being touched by the inside by breath. Arriving for breath, being an appreciation of breath and body. We'll meet up with the front knee bent. We can tuck the back toes to lift the back knee and take a quarter turn to the right. Organize your feet so they're parallel to one another. And then begin to bend the left knee a bit. And then coming back through center to bend the right knee a bit. Just side to side like that. Your hands can be on the floor underneath your shoulders, or your hands can be on blocks. Notice the folding in the hip joints, the creasing in the ankle and knee. And we'll meet up with both legs long and take a quarter turn to the right. Lower your back knee down to a mat or a blanket. And we'll find this on the second side. So we'll come up onto the fingertips, or you might need to turn around and grab your blocks so you can lift your sternum a little bit skyward and then push into your front foot to then elongate the front leg. And we'll continue like that. So the front knee bends, the top of the sternum rises, and we push into the earth to send the hip back to deeply crease in the front hip. A few more times like that. Again, being moved by breath and accessing pleasure as a way to melt into the experience, melt the conceptual mind into body. Body as a living, changing process. And we'll bend the front knee, tuck the back toes, lift your back knee up off the ground. Take a quarter turn to your left. Again, organizing your feet so they're parallel. You can come up onto your fingertips, your hands can be on blocks. And then once again, we'll bend side to side. So the right knee bends and traveling through center, and left knee bends. So this time, if you like, you could lower your forearms down towards the ground, maybe even release the spine so that your spine also has a little rocking movement side to side. Notice how your feet are touching the floor. And let that be like a loving, curious relationship. So the feet are pushing down, which moves the body. So they're lovingly relating to the ground. As you're feeling balanced side to side, we'll find center. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Then shift your weight back onto your heels. Bring your hands to your hips and come all the way up to stand. Turn your heels in, your toes out. Bend your knees nice and deep. And then again, we'll move a little bit side to side. And again, it's coming from your feet pushing down. And again, it's like your feet are, in the same way you were like touching your hands, you're touching your hands, touching your body, letting it be curious. It's like your feet are doing that with the floor. And of course, that creates all of this creativity, all of this sweet movement in your spine. And then we'll travel through center. Let your arms travel out wide to the side. Lengthen your legs. Notice all of your length, feel your whole size. Bend your knees and find a little bounce at the bottom to swing your arms down. And then we'll push into the earth to come back to all of that length. Bend your knees and find a little bounce at the bottom to swing the arms. A few times like that. So knees bend, arms swing with the bounce, and we lengthen. Knees bend, little bounce, and we lengthen. Knees bend, we bounce, and we lengthen. Last time, knees bend, there's a bounce, and we lengthen. Okay, turn your left toes in and your right toes out, and make your way to a warrior two. And then make your way to an extended side angle. When we hold a static position, it's like it gets in the way of our transformation. So I invite you to rest into breath and rest into movement. And that might mean for today that the posture is a little more, it's almost like you're adjusting yourself, or as though you were doing this shape on a paddle board or something. You're having to be in an active conversation with the ground. Connect with breath. Connect with being touched on the inside. And let's come back up to warrior two. Push into your front foot to extend your leg. Right toes in, left toes out, and into the second side. Finding warrior two. And then extended side angle. Allowing for a loving, curious touch with the ground. So lovingly, feet touching and being touched by the ground. And being with breath. And letting yourself be moved with breath. So releasing away from holding a static posture. And as you're ready, finding your warrior two. Push down into your front foot to extend your front leg. Turn your left foot in and wiggle your feet back together. Once again, we'll bend the knees and circle arms. A few times like that. Exploring a back bend, and when you come forward, letting yourself round. Exploring a back bend as the arms go up and back, and allowing yourself to round. One more time like that. And when you're ready, folding forward, Uttanasana. Lengthen halfway, Ardha Uttanasana. And step back to downward facing dog. Come forward to a plank. Transition all the way down to your belly. In a moment here, you can bring your hands forward out in front of you and then rest your hands in front of you so you can rest your forehead on your hands. And then a few breaths here. Again, lovingly touching the ground and receiving the ground. Touching and being touched by your breath. And being with the shifting shape of your body. And then as you're ready, bring your hands underneath your shoulders and rise into a low cobra. And infusing this posture with your breath and your curiosity. And finding an appreciation for your body. And letting that appreciation connect you to what might feel good here. Letting that melt you into this moment, into this breath. And let's head back to child's pose. And travel to all fours. And widen your feet some. So this transition may work for you, might not. We're going to travel into a squat. You'll tuck your toes under, walk your hands back, and then push yourself into a squat. So come up to any height you might need, make any adjustments, of course, for that transition. Let's try some up and down. So push down into the earth to come up to stand. And bend through your ankles, your knees, your hips to come back down. And a few times like that. So rooting down to rise. And traveling back down to your squat. Rooting down to rise. And traveling down to a squat. Rooting down to rise. And traveling into a squat. From your squat, bring your hands towards the earth. Lift your hips. Find a standing forward fold. walk yourself to a downward facing dog. Now a moment to really consider what would feel just right in this moment. So we can listen in. And from that place of listening, what does your body know? What would your body like you to explore? And then follow that in just a couple of minutes with this. There's no rush, but eventually we'll meet up back together, laying down. So eventually you'll make your way to your back with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. And begin to lift your legs up towards the sky and let your arms lift up. And bend your knees as much as you need to so that your sacrum can rest on the ground or your pelvis can feel like it rests. Now begin to create some circles to your feet, and your ankles, and your elbows, and your knees, and your hips, and your shoulders. So just a few circles. And then falling into the circles, maybe the legs will want to open, or maybe the knees will want to bend a little bit more. And follow again this place where it might feel nice to wiggle, to gesture, to float the limbs. Find your own creative expression inside of this. And then we're going to settle this into a happy baby. And feel free to rock a little side to side. And hug your knees into your chest. Release your feet down to the ground. And open your feet so they're about as wide as your outer hips or as wide as a yoga mat if you're using one. And we'll let the fingertips travel up towards the sky and then bend both elbows to hold onto your elbows. Find an inhale here. On an exhale, let your knees travel to the right and your elbows to the left. Inhale, travel back through center, and exhale, knees to the left and elbows to the right. Inhale, back through center, and exhale, knees right, elbows left. Inhale through center, and exhale, knees to the left, elbows right. And we'll do that a couple more times each side. Find your own breath rhythm. Find the deep inner permission to be with your own rhythm, to honor your own rhythm. When you're feeling balanced, travel through center, hug your knees in. Then we'll release the feet back down to the floor and find a shimmy. It's like a heel rock, if you know that, but this one, your knees are bent and your feet are on the floor. So the feet are pushing down and they have a more forward action to them. And then the feet get light and they almost have like a backwards action, even though they're staying where they are. And you do that pretty fast. So down and light, down and up, sort of, front and back, sort of. And it allows for this whole shimmy rocking to come into your pelvis and into your spine. And you can just follow that, roll with that. And find some nice big breaths. On your next exhale, simply let that go. And often there's like an afterglow. Just arrive for that, listen for that. And let's extend the legs out for a moment to rest, to do nothing. Notice the places that you touch the floor. And be in that touch. You can imagine that it's the touch of a lover. It's a loving touch. Experiment with receiving the touch of the ground, letting it come into you, receiving the ground fully, receiving the earth. Notice that in that touch, you are also offering yourself. And imagine or feel that the earth is receiving you. Your touch, your unique way of being here is being received. Be with your breath and feel the touch of breath. So intimate. Very gently allow a little bit of movement to come into your body, exaggerating the movement of breath. And eventually we'll bring knees into the chest. Roll to your side. And rise up to your seat. Just a brief moment here to pause and to listen. Notice how you feel. And then again, a moment to bring your hands up to your face and touch your face lovingly. Receive the touch. And walk your hands down. Place your hands on your sternum. And then bring your hands together in front of your heart. We'll close our practice with a bow. Thank you.